I think most of the songs were written out there in Shelbyville in that house. I remember specifically some of them, where I was sitting. And I used at the time, and for years and years, I used a handheld cassette recorder as my primary. That's where I kept my notes. And I think I formalized it more than ever with the preparation for the I See a Darkness record. I think this was the first time, rather than putting everybody in the room at once, began to experiment with inviting people to come for a few days, 4 or 5 days at a time, by themselves. And it was done with my friends Colin Gagan, David Pajo, and Bob Ariano. I think we initially tracked my brother Paul playing bass and recording, our friend Pete Townsend playing drums, and myself playing guitar and singing. And then invited either Bob or Colin to come separately and do their parts. And Pajo was probably in and out of the area, Kentucky, Louisville at the time. So he came out he helped mix, but also tracked something on the Song for the New Breed. All of the singing that is on the final record was done in the initial take of the tracking. So in this case, it would have been voice, bass, electric guitar, and drums all were live. And then there were extra voices added. I did lots of harmonies. And Colin did a fair amount of backing singing as well. Pursuing music as a way of communing with other people, it continues to this day. I'm not somebody who puts together a sonic concept of what a record should end up sounding like literally sounding like the individual sounds. And in asking Colin Gagan to come and play on the record, it was definitely because I know he's a brilliant musician with just kind of it's like it's in his genetic makeup, just a relationship to music and to pitch and to rhythm. And he's a great accordion player and piano player. But I mostly just wanted to be with him. And I didn't anticipate how beautifully and thoroughly his piano playing would shape the power and feel of this record. I didn't think about that at all. I just thought, oh, it'd be great if Colin could come out and hang out and work on this for 5 days. But the piano from the very beginning, he introduces everybody sonically. He sort of opens the record up to everybody with his first chords, and he knew how to be open. I mean, it's just like, come in. The very first chords at the very beginning of the record, at the very beginning of the song, is Colin just, telling everybody, here, I'll scoot over. You come in and sit here with me and be a part of this record.
Oh, it's not a desert, nor a web, nor a tomb where I lay dead, minor in a sound alone. Yes, a clear, commanding tone.
Fun with the bridge, so much fun with the bridge. Having a bridge and the sort of cathartic explosion that can happen when the bridge goes to the 5 chord. I'm not sure if I'm remembering right, and yet I will make a stark admission, which is that I believe that A Minor Place may have been inspired by the setting to music and recording of the Woody Guthrie lyrics that Wilco and Billy Bragg did. They did 2 records. One was Mermaid Avenue, and the second one might have been Mermaid Avenue, Son of Mermaid Avenue, or there was a second one as well. I think it was on the first one. Wilco was not a band that I understood. I still don't actually understand them. I know that they are wonderful people and that their audiences are thoughtful, interesting human beings. But for some reason, my ears glaze over, and they always have whenever I've heard Wilco from the beginning. I don't understand it. Don't know why. It's not to say anything against their music. And kind of same with Billy Bragg. I could understand what his value was and that he was awesome in his way, but for some reason he didn't push any of my buttons. And Woody Guthrie, sometimes even similarly. I understand the monumental aspect of his canon and his influence He's still not the greatest singer in the world. I think probably the bulk of his power had to do with his rapport with his audiences all over the country and the specific issues sometimes that brought people together for the music to happen. But I liked that record a lot. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of collaborative efforts, and I find that there's tremendous value in bringing disparate creative forces together to create something. And that's maybe what I loved about listening to that record, is just the evidence of the alchemy of the differing forces coming together. But there's a song on there, I think it's either called or the refrain is Way Down Yonder in a Minor Key. And it really resonated with me. And I thought, just to expand upon this idea of understanding the power and privilege even of limited reach and limited resonance, and knowing that the things that I am most enthusiastic about in the world for the most part, and the things that move me the most, are not things that necessarily have global reach. You know, I've been to big arena concerts. I saw Prince in concert, and it meant almost nothing because of the size of the audience. And similarly, like when I tried to have an acting career and started to understand that most film sets were these massive undertakings with so many people and so much money, and it had just almost less than zero appeal. I didn't understand why anyone would engage in those things. You know, when people would talk about small budget movies or small budget records and think like, you do not understand. You do not know what a small budget record is. There's no way to say what I See a Darkness cost if you had to just put a price tag on the, I don't know, flights, the flights and feeding people. We're talking about, you know, I don't know, $800 or $900, maybe something like that. And then I think I paid everybody at the time. So I probably, who knows what I paid folks, $1,000 or something like that. It might have cost $3,000 or something like that, which is what some people with micro budgets would say is a massive budget. But most people in the music business would say, like, what was that, to demo a song? $3,000. Otherwise, it's just understanding that I still appreciate a show in which the audience is 300 people or less, ideally less than 50 people, ideally less than 24 people. That's when the magic kind of happens. And I just, I like small things, believing that it's the stronger, tinier things that make up the strongest entities or the strongest forces. So yeah, it's definitely a song celebrating limited reach. And what do they say? Thinking globally, acting locally. I feel like as the smaller, more intimate, and more vulnerable any sort of artistic experience is, the more resonant and powerful and useful I think it ends up being. And so that song is a celebration of that.
Singing from my little point and aching in my every joint, I thank the world it will anoint me if I show it how I hold it.
It did seem to be an obvious and evident statement of purpose, and so it may have been thought of right away as the initial song. And it celebrates, trying to turn what was potentially a negative into a positive, which was this separation from Drag City, which were incredibly vital to my life and living and morale. And, this decision had been made for the time being and potentially forever, for all we knew at the time, separate, and to separate not by what most people at the time were doing by stepping into the echelons of the major labels, of the more moneyed and powerful, but in the other direction, and not really feeling bad about it at all. And so the song was also helping to buttress that and reinforce this idea that, well, we're taking a fork in the road and we're taking definitely continuing to take a road that is obviously less traveled. I think my father told me at some point that I needed patience and I needed to focus at a certain point, and sometimes you do something that you're aware for you seems to have power, but we don't know, we don't know what the manifestation of that power is, because as much as the future resembles the past, it's also going to be unfamiliar and completely different from anything we've experienced before. And so you have to hold on to something as you walk through the storm.